Hola.
We are live again. Well, no one's here yet, so it's just us.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Oh, yeah. Hey.
Hey, Rachel.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us again. We're really excited to do a couple of these and really talk about what we're learning.
I'm really excited about this one, especially because, this has kind of started your journey and hence my journey and the rest of our journey.
I'm bringing him on my journey. No, this is really exciting, and talking to, he's here.
Peace.
Okay, come on, technology, connect us.
There it is.
We connect.
Hey guys, how are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're super excited to speak with you.
Likewise, this is exciting.
I was just telling everybody how I'm so excited for this, especially just because, what you do and this film in particular, Kiss the Ground, started Kelsey's journey, which really started mine, and everyone in our families. And it's kind of, this was the genesis of it all for us. So.
Yeah, this Kiss the Ground was like the Matrix. We took the blue pill, and now we can't go back. All we can see is what the film has shown. And we watched it again with our family this weekend, and it was really cool. It's always really cool to sit with someone who hasn't seen it and watch their minds be blown. So
Exactly.
That's so great. I think it's a great shout out to the filmmakers, Josh and Rebecca Tickell, and everyone who contributed to make this film happen. It was a major communal effort. I remember right in the beginning of trying to push them to make this film, and they were like, "A film about dirt? Not so much. We do films about oil. I don't know about the soil thing, but we got it through." And they had the aha moment. But it's so touching to know that it is having the impact, because the impetus for the film for us, the reason for it was like 8 years ago, we had an aha moment, and we said to ourselves, if we didn't know this, probably a lot of people don't know, and probably we can help people get it too, who hadn't been aware, so.
Yeah.
Great to hear that it's having the same impact. Yeah.
Well, just as we were all even announcing this live, we had so many DMs and people reaching out going, "I just watched the movie because I wanted to prepare for the live, and oh my God," they're like,
"Oh my God,
the
I
mind
didn't
is
know."
Great.
From afar,
Yeah, it's so well done. If anyone listening has not seen it, please go see it.
And go.
Yeah, go get your
homework
mind blown.
Yeah.
Well, it really was the aha moment for me. I was, really interested in what I could do for the climate crisis, but I felt really paralyzed and completely overwhelmed anytime I would think about it. And I was really busy with my company that I used to have pre-COVID. And then COVID solved that problem for me, and I lost my company, and I had all this time to sit.
We got to give a shout out to Brazil. Oi, tudo bem? We just
Yay!
no flags there.
Hey, Brazil.
Ciao.
Brazil.
And Pakistan. Oh my goodness. So anyway, the company was done, and I had time to sit and think. And I was really overwhelmed, really paralyzed. And then I got hit with some health stuff. So dealing with hypothyroidism. So we're very lucky. We have a beautiful daughter, and we've been trying for number 2, but there's been some infertility this time around. And so that really started us looking inward, and me in particular wondering about the fertile grounds within. And I had a friend suggest, have you seen Kiss the Ground? I think it's really a beautiful metaphor for you as you're looking inward to look outward and to look at the fertile grounds outside of yourself. And I watched it and I thought, oh my God, this is connecting so many dots for me.
Yeah.
And then to learn that you guys had a soil advocacy program, I couldn't kind of click on that faster. And I really loved taking that program. For anyone that's interested, it's a deep dive on what you get to learn in the film, and they make it so accessible and the TED Talks and speakers that you get introduced to, it's just really extraordinary.
And
then you go
went
on.
through that quick. You gobbled it up.
Yes,
Great.
yeah, did.
This man really supported me because I was like, peace out.
I'm gonna go do my work.
I'm
gonna go save the world.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. All right, I got the baby.
I need some time to dive into it. And I'm so glad I did. And then you start reaching out and connect it. Kiss the Ground does such a good job of connecting you with the community where you can speak to the heroes and they respond right back. It's like totally insane.
You guys can probably identify with this. I was in entertainment before this. I always cracked up. I was like, my first couple weeks in the aha moment, I like called Ratan Lal. So I'm like thinking, okay, he's like superstar of soil climate stuff. And I'm calling his office expecting the secretary to talk to someone. Can I get a meeting? Da, 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 da. He answers the phone and we talk for an hour. And I was like, this is nothing like Hollywood. These people want me to help them and they're responsive. This is great.
Oh my
God. It's a totally different world. Yeah.
A beautiful contrast, and people are really so encouraging when you say, I'm interested, I want to help. I mean, getting to speak to you, I really am kind of having a wow moment because you were my teacher, really the voice throughout that shows people how they can help. So everyone, this program is incredibly accessible. If you're interested at all, I highly recommend it. And look, you get to talk to your heroes on an Instagram live, like within a couple months. Pretty cool.
It's so funny. She kept talking about this guy Finian and was opening her eyes to everything and just was so like starry-eyed. And then the idea that we were going to be able to talk to you directly and to be able to converse about this, that was really pretty amazing. And she's a bit starstruck.
Nicholas, for you, good question for you. What was the thing, either with the film or with the deep dive that Kelsey was in? What was the thing that most was like, oh my God, I had never thought of that, or thing that was the biggest?
Well, I feel like I'm like a lot of people out there that, you know, you really give a shit and you care and you want to do something, but at the same time, it feels so overwhelming that you really feel, what's the drop in the bucket? You know, is our recycling making it where it's supposed to? Like all these questions that people have, and, you know, what's really viable and what does one drop in the bucket mean? And then the talk changed to soil health. And I think that was really kind of a click for me because it made sense, and it's something that's doable. And the people that we've been able to talk to, like last week we talked, or a couple weeks ago, with Rep Provisions, who's doing regenerative, you know, farming and ranching in Oklahoma, and to see that, you know, this market, this system that he had built, and this system of that regenerative farmers are building is it's a scalable model. It's something that can change things now, and it's it can really, I think if we can get kind of a tidal wave going, you know, I feel like this speed pickup, I feel aha moments, you know, coming from people, because there's actually something we can focus on right now and make a difference. And even people that are listening to this right now can focus on right now and make a difference. And that, to me, makes all the difference, because I want to see, if I donate, I want to see where my money goes. You know, if I'm working hard, then I want to see the fruition of that. And this and what you guys have kind of put together as the way to attack climate change, as well as, you know, especially soil health, it works and it makes sense. And I'm a believer. I think we're going to become ranchers.
I know.
Yeah. I would say I have a very similar backstory as you both shared, in that, like, this first understanding of, we actually have a viable place, not some potential technology, not some, like, maybe someone's going to make the thing that is the vacuum for carbon. Like, we have an enormous, called most all of land except for like mountain ranges, has this ginormous potential. And what was so amazing for me was what happened when the blocks started falling. It was like, place to put carbon, number one. I was like, wait, how did I not know about that? And then once you start getting into this of like, well, how does the carbon get there? You start really, and this is why, like, so many indigenous cultures have probably been, you know, shaking some of us for years of like, just get it, like, we can be supportive of nature. But when you grasp that oh my gosh, carbon sequestration isn't the end. It's just the means to rebuild our ecosystems, rebuild our soil. When you start to have that click, you look at the world that we've devastated and you see a viable option, not just to suck up the carbon, but to rebuild paradise and rebuild abundance where all across the world there's lack of water, there's lack of resources. And we can say, no, we can work. Humans can be this steward of the land and have this transformation. And I want to take you guys out, and maybe we do Instagram Lives in the future, to these fence line shots.
Yeah.
Where people get to see not just the movie, because like you could be like, oh, maybe they did special effects, but you guys can be there with your Instagram Live or whatnot, saying, here's what management degeneratively looks like. Here's what happens regeneratively. Now we're doing infiltration soil tests, like people seeing it of like, this is the difference of a massively bigger refugee crisis in the next 10 years or not. This is the difference of water security or not. This is the difference of viability of life in terms of biodiversity or not. So that's why, to me, it's like you start with wherever you start, whether it's human health or whether it's desertification or whether it's carbon, a viable carbon solution. You then open up all of these other boxes because you're essentially understanding how nature evolved to work, how it evolved to make abundance versus desertification. Like we can help that. And that's just, it just gets me so lit up because we have an option that one of the other things I always think is so crucial for people to know is most people didn't know this, especially like the leading environmentalists. So I give that to people to say, hey, you didn't like miss the boat here. You're not a moron for not knowing about this. Like most people just didn't know this potential here. So it's extremely
well. Even the soil expert in your film, you know, talks about it, where he's like, I didn't even know that this is what carbon did. That you know that he had to then learn, and that's what he had studied. That's what he had spent his college life studying.
4 years in school plus more years in school for soil science and agriculture. Then 25 years in the NRCS, and he says, I didn't know, we didn't know. And that's what's so exciting.
Yeah, and it's really, it seems like an education problem and breaking from these big systems and seeking your own. I mean, we feel that with human health as well, where there's just a lot of having to self-educate and go after it. So I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, you're not an idiot if you don't know this, but man, once you know it, you can't go back.
And this is the micro macro of it in some senses, because our bodies, and what she's saying with health, and that's a whole other side of the industrialization of medicine and
food.
The way, food and how that has changed. Like the way we're trying to repair the soil is the way we're trying to repair our own guts, our own gut lining, if you will, because of what's done to the soil, and it is so intimately connected. And people don't realize that it doesn't, because what you eat, there's no filter other than what the ground, the soil, what is supposed to be that filter, and then what we put into it is still, there's no block between it. That is what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. That there's those pesticides don't go away. All these other things, fertilizers and stuff don't go away, but if we can put nutrients and carbon and good things into the soil, then that's what we get into our food.
And it's so interesting. Our 4-year-old watched the film with us, which was like very impressive, and she just totally got it. My
favorite was the first time she turned to me and she goes, "It's in our water? We drink that?" And I was like,
I mean, she got right away. The buggies in the soil are the same that's in our stomach, and what we eat is so. It's just really cool to see a younger generation it makes sense. It really just makes sense.
Well, even when we first started dating, I remember that I was constantly telling you about food as fuel. You hear that and you don't think about what you put in your body. A lot of people just feel, well, I'm still young and I'm running around and I'm fine. This is my diet, not really realizing that when you're eating for a particular reason. And that was something we kind of always battled on. And now she's taken over, and
I did not get it, and now I really do.
Yeah, and it just goes on and on. And one of the things I wanted to encourage listeners out there is that around the world there are so many parts you can play to help with this movement and to get involved. And one thing, one of the folks who works, one of the founding members of Kiss the Ground, Karen Rodriguez, she says this could be fun, because a lot of the times when we look at climate change and what we're facing, it's so daunting. And all likelihoods, when we look at being successful in regenerating the planet based on current paradigms, is not a very easy win here. It's going to take all of us dedicating our time, but that's a great reminder always to me of like, the participation in this is exciting. It is invigorating. It isn't the anti this, anti that. It can be the pro supportive movement that we build that does have that. Nicholas, I think you were alluding to this before, is like you get that positive feedback because you'd be like, oh my God, that land is regenerated. Like it happened. It is sequestering carbon. It's pulling water. It's allowing water. It's allowing the biodiversity. The butterflies are back. The birds are back. And that's what's so incredible.
That's my favorite part, is those makeovers, if you will. Like I love watching that. I love that's what I love about what is it, Biggest Little Farm is.
Oh my God, this is a reality show, maybe soil makeover.
I mean, I would watch
it. You can't do it. It's not like the weak house build or extreme makeover for the house.
No, we'll launch it in 3
years. Yeah.
But I honestly, I love those makeovers. I love seeing something where, it's desertification or completely scarred land that's been left bare, and to watch diversity come back, to watch the bees come back, to watch the birds, to watch that ground covered in green and rich, soil. That's, I want to do that.
Yeah, and that's the flip, Nicholas, the flip between conservation and sustainability thinking. Like, are we thinking sustainably? Are we thinking conservation? Or are we thinking regeneratively? Yeah. And that to me is such a powerful shift, because what we look at now is how do we conserve what little we have left? And a great story from Audubon Society, who most people probably know, help protect birds, right? They want to make sure the bird populations don't plummet, because it would be tragic. And
first sign.
Huh?
One of the first signs.
Right, exactly, for major declines. So when we say where farmers and ranchers are doing either regenerative grazing or these other regenerative practices, that's where 10 years ago the Audubon Society says, hey, conservation isn't working nearly as well as regeneration. And regeneration has humans involved with it. So just setting aside land for conservation doesn't always work. In a lot of these degraded, brittle environments, humans' management is what's going to take it out of that continuous degradation and turn the corner back to regeneration, that bird populations come back and we start restoring biodiversity, water systems, etc. Should we answer some of the questions from
Oh yeah, I have questions from high school students. A friend of mine from college, Erica, asked students from a charter school in Granada Hills. They're in 10th and 11th grade, and a lot of this is going to fall on this generation's shoulders. And so it's so interesting to hear what gets them excited. They watched the Kiss the Ground student version of the film. And so I have 4 questions from them. A lot of them wanted to know, what's an easy way to compost? How can I immediately start composting?
Great question. First off, I always say commit to composting, like you commit to something important in your life. When you commit, seriously, you'll do the YouTubing that's required to have your compost done well. And one of the easiest ways to get around your parents is to say, number 1, first of all, we have to compost. Number 2, I'm going to do an experiment for our household to see how much compostable material we create in 1 week. Number 3, move your receptacle if you already have a compost, but if you don't, put your receptacle in your freezer so that someone in your family who hates the fruit flies or hates the stink that can come when it starts to anaerobically digest, you mitigate that. And plus, when you take out the compost, it's not all slimy and anaerobically digesting. It actually can just spread frozen on your compost pile. But when you take your receptacle, put it in your freezer, and you do a week's worth of compostables, that's all your tomato scraps or your banana peels, whatever, you'll be just astonished at how quick it fills up. You will not be able to, if you have a family of more than 3 people, you won't be able to last a week before you have to take out a pretty large receptacle into your compost. And
Yeah.
that'll be that reminder that would have otherwise made it to the landfill where it's producing methane gas and being useless for any regenerative purposes. So that's a start. And then number 5, whatever number I'm on right now, get a brown bin on the side of your compost bin. You can order a compost bin online or go pick one up from your city a lot. They'll do free days for compost bins or cheap sales. But get a bin on the side that has your browns, meaning your leaves that you can throw over top, or anything like ripped up paper bags, your Amazon boxes that you don't want to put in the recycling because we don't know where recycling goes anymore.
That's a big one. Yep.
You can shred those up and have them in your brown bin. And this way you can toss browns on top of your high nitrogen food scraps so that you can have no stink and no flies. And then have a pitchfork or some kind of stirring thing if you ever need to break apart clumps of the frozen food. Because anytime you have too much food compacted together, it'll start to anaerobically digest, because that means not enough air. Anaerobic is without air. Inside there will make the stinking happen and make the bugs come. So you can break those apart on top and put your browns on, and you'll be good to go. And water about once a month for about anywhere from 60 seconds to a couple minutes. Yeah, that's your lesson for the day.
And and I think what's so interesting about that too is that people immediately go overwhelmed and then think about the work of it. But if you can listen to what he said and do for a week, that alone, I think when you see what's there in front of you, you see what a difference you can make, and that hopefully. Do it, you're kind of
and then when your compost is done, it's I've had a child now, so it's not quite as miraculous as that, but it's miraculous. When you finish compost, when you see the black gold at the bottom of the pile, it's just extraordinary that was your old trash, your food scraps. It's just so amazing. Yeah.
Oh, these are really good tips. We have we've been composting, and it's actually, as you said, it's completely overwhelming to see what would have gone into the green bin, and to know that you can take action. And what we've been doing, one for our garden and one that we've been burying around the yard, that are scraps that aren't going to go in the garden, like a lot of protein, but trying to not use the green bin at all. We just found out our dog Biff has been looking extra chubs these days, and we're like, what's going on with him? And he's been helping us compost. He's been getting into the protein one and doing his part.
Yeah, he came in one day with compost bags like up in his nails because he had like gone through it, and he came in happy and wagging his tail. And
yeah, we were like, what is going on?
Now we know who's been getting into it.
Waddling in. So if you have
just a really quick tip for folks: why you don't put dairy and meat into your regular compost is because the temperature of a at-home compost, unless you have a very big one, isn't going to get high enough to take out the pathogens that will be created with something that's meat or dairy based. It's not that you can't compost them, or a city can't compost them. It's just that the size of your pile at home will not suffice. So that's why they're talking about the bury method. But with meat scraps, with dog stuff, you have to go pretty deep to bury those. So for some folks, I just say right now, get into composting and don't go with the meat yet or the bones yet. You guys, I'm giving you high fives for it. But for the beginners out there, I would recommend just steering clear of that to get going on your compost and have success. Because if you mismanage the meat and dairy in your compost, it can smell very, very, very much bad. So
that's a really good note. So we have the garden one, and then we have the one that we bury and we just let it go back into the ground, that has the meat, that has the dairy. That's bonus points if anyone would like to try that. And then another great thing that we've been doing, and they're amazing at it, is we have chickens. So if anyone has ever been interested in them, they're amazing animals. Coops, you can get them on Facebook and trade almost for free. And then we give them all of our compost, and that goes right into the eggs that we eat, and they're incredible. Those ladies can really, really take down the compost.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't have technical space in my house right now to do chickens, but those folks who do, I recommend it too. And if you have the compost thing going for the chicken feed, and obviously you probably usually have to buy other chicken feed, but on a calorie per calorie basis and food miles basis, the more that we can look at like the amount that's in an egg that sustains you and your family If you can have that coming from your backyard, you know, per calorie basis, that could be better than just not having a meat substitute, right? Like if you're having the whatever those fake burgers are versus like your egg from your backyard, one's degenerative soy producing terrible farming practices. The other is your own backyard. I mean, it's just for the environment. You got to look at the whole. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, we love chickens.
I keep seeing a question. Any tips for apartment living waste management?
Oh, that's a great one.
Definitely. Worms. Or someone just mentioned Bokashi method as well. But, worms are really great because they can be in a very small space, and multiple worm bins can be living off your deck or any place, even inside. You could have worm bins inside. But definitely that. Otherwise, get your community together, figure out where you can haul your compost once a week with your neighbors and be like, dude, I'm going to take on my entire apartment complex. I'm either going to lobby my apartment building to start doing this and have the maintenance people manage an on-site compost facility, or I'm going to work with the city, or I'm going to take this to a local park or a local garden that has compost. You be that inspiration of figuring it out, and you can have miracles happen, because compost is valuable and people will take it if you help them.
I think you're also really touching on something important, which is one voice matters. You know, the trend tipping point is 3.5%. That's not that many people that have to speak up. So if you want to be the person in your apartment building, or like we're trying to use our voice to speak up, that's big ag.
We had to speak up to her parents first and change this household.
And it worked. It worked great. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
But yeah, that's how big ag will follow consumer dollars. So we really need to, and consumer voices.
Yeah, so. I saw that too. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We do not condone that.
Should we do the next question?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, following on that. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, how do you know when the soil is healthy and has enough nutrients?
Great question.
Yeah.
Are we talking to a farmer? Is this a high school student still?
This is still the high school students.
They're a farmer. That's a great question. One thing I want to share is that how your soil performs is really a great indicator. So in the soil advocate training, we do the more complicated versions of infiltration, but you can very easily see how well your soil is absorbing water, for example. You can make a ring out of some plastic tubing, or even just figure out how to make a ring about this width and maybe this deep, and then take a little bit of water and just see how quick it infiltrates. And then compare, let's say, your yard or your garden with somewhere that has compacted bare ground, and you can start to see contrasting how they're doing. But infiltration of water is a really great indicator of soil aggregate stability and how well your soil is doing. If you have total sand, you'll pour water in it, it'll just infiltrate, but that doesn't equal healthy soil.
Yeah.
But as long as your soil doesn't look like complete sand, and you have like clay soil that looks like normal soil, let's say, you can use infiltration and really get to see how your soil is doing. Yeah.
And just for anyone that doesn't know, because this was something I learned in the program, is when it doesn't, by infiltrate, it means to soak into the ground, right? Because healthy soil, like a sponge. It has air pockets in there, just perfectly built to store that water, which is why we then hopefully don't have to worry as much about droughts and floods. When it doesn't infiltrate, it's when you literally see the water on top of the ground. So
or it's running off. And this is where sometimes people say, is my lawn bad? Are all lawns bad? And I don't think we should say that. It's really how they're managed. So if you cut your grass too short, the roots of your grass are going to be really short, and you're not actually helping your soil pump carbon in and build your soil, because you have a limited amount of photosynthesis capacity because of the size of your plants. Maybe too much science here, but you're limiting how much you can build the soil sponge. If you let your grass grow, keep it at about 4 inches tall, let's say, and in the wintertime during the rainy season, you apply compost, even that you buy at the store if you don't have enough compost at your home, you're going to be activating the amount of photosynthesis, meaning how many sugars, carbon-based sugars that the plants are pumping into the ground and build your soil sponge. You can significantly reduce your water cost, or the amount of water you actually have to use, and you're increasing your soil carbon sponge. So when it rains, compared to a badly taken care of garden that you put some mulch out and then the mulch disappeared because it evaporated into carbon, and then you have like dirt patches and a couple plants, you pour water on those two things and the well-managed grass is going to be a much better sponge and a much better carbon sequestration tool than the bare ground with one plant here, one plant there. So we have to think in context of what is the land asking for? How are we helping the land maximize its photosynthetic capacity, pump more carbon into the ground, and build our soil sponge?
That's awesome. And I'm seeing Yasmina, who took the soil advocacy program, ask about, or say also the temperature gun, which is a really interesting way to see.
Yeah.
I loved that example as well. And this is such perfect timing because we just purchased a soil sample kit for our new house, just to kind of see where the soil is. Is that something?
Not to judge it. Not to judge the soil. But
No, you
well,
totally,
we're going to judge it a little
totally
bit.
need to judge your soil, and not for the soil. It was our fault. So if you live in the city especially, if you can, please do test your soil, because you don't know if 50 years ago you had a diesel station across the street or literally where you live right now. Like, things change and the soil doesn't necessarily get time to repair or anyone looking after it. So you can have very high metals and different things in your soil that, if you're growing leafy vegetables like spinach or lettuce, might actually be being absorbed into your plants. So you might say, okay, I guess we're gonna have to go with orange trees here because our soil is got all these issues. And you might have to plant accordingly if you have bad soil that has chemicals that could enter if not regulated. So do test your soil. If you can, please. It usually costs about between $30 and $50, but it's well worth it to get the samples you need to know if your soil is going to be safe, especially if you live in a city.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. We got our soil sampling kit. It's around $30, as you said. And my plan was, if it doesn't come back great, which I think there's some chance that it won't, that we were going to do some cover crops and do raised beds for the first year so we can control the soil and then be rehabbing the ground so that hopefully maybe 2 years, maybe 3, we can start planting again in that soil. So thank you for encouraging that.
Yeah, that's exactly the right plan. And I just did my first official, I've kind of done variations of it, but I did my first official lasagna garden recently, which is doing the starting with the cardboard and then doing stacked cardboard.
Oh, I was like, you can grow pasta? I'm listening.
You can grow
I've done the lasagna. Come on.
What can't you do?
It's doing layers and it's performing really well. So I was really excited. That was my first lasagna. You can just YouTube lasagna gardening. Again, folks,
Ooh, I'm going
use
to.
the internet. You can take soil advocate training, but you can also just find things online. There's so many people sharing their knowledge, and there are plenty of peer-reviewed papers to look up too, and to back up it scientifically. Use the internet, please. You don't always have to wait for an expert to tell you things. You can find them out.
A great tip. It's a great tip.
For everyone watching out there that hasn't seen the movie yet and is wondering, well, why are we suddenly talking so much about soil and why is soil health so important? Just a little quick about, the movie. I think one of the big takeaways is the sequestration of carbon and bringing carbon out of the atmosphere, bringing it into the soil and trapping it and using it with the microbes and the fungus and everything else that's interconnected underground and back into our food and into our bodies and in this cycle, whether it's the water and soil and everything else that kind of makes up our biosphere, it's tainted, and
it's not going away. All the carbon that we've put out there is with us still since industrialization. So we have to put it somewhere. And underneath our feet is the infinite reservoir. And it helps us on every other level as well.
I'm just going to pick from my plan here. I don't want to pick it up, so I'm just going to pick it. But this is the reminder. This is a leaf that didn't deserve to get picked, but it's got some issues, so we're going to use it. But reminder of what they're talking about. What we didn't know in science was how much of the sugar water or sap or whatever you want to call it that a plant creates gets pumped out of the roots to feed microorganisms in the soil. This is one of the big clutch aha moments that is changing the paradigm of humans' management of land. Plants take carbon from our atmosphere, right? It's hanging out here. They take carbon from carbon dioxide, using energy from the sun. They break the carbon off from carbon dioxide and connect it with hydrogen and oxygen from water they pull up from the roots. Inside their leaves, they make this chemical bond between the carbon and the hydrogen and oxygen, making a glucose molecule that is then diluted with water. That moves through the plant. When you break this, there's liquid in here. That's that water, okay? That sugar water. The sugar, the carbon bonds, are what the plant uses to build its leaf, or a new stem, or a tree uses to grow its bark, right? It's using the carbon from the air, okay? What we didn't know, so all that liquid, was that 30 to 40% of those liquid sugars are being leaked out of the root systems, like a drip line, drip, 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 feeding all these microbes at the root zone. Those microbes consume the carbon. They are then made of carbon. They create glues.
And everyone, microbes are the little bugs in the ground, just for,
yes, yep. Exactly. Like bacteria, fungi, nematodes, right. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, thank you. Those microbes consume it. They create glues that are then made of carbon. And voila, you've pumped carbon into the ground, and the microorganisms are storing it as healthy soil. That is 30 to 40%. Pump, pump, pump. If we maximize how much plants can pump the carbon in, we can rebuild soil faster than we ever thought possible. Therefore, sequestering billions and billions of tons of carbon into the ground and making healthy, spongy soil that makes food taste yummy and healthy and makes water systems work, blah, 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 blah. So just to recap,
and can also
today is it's freaking amazing, and we can do something about it.
And can also have up to 400% more phytonutrients in the in the vegetable that we're having. It's a huge difference in like what's grown commercially and what's grown from
I can't believe
soil.
how much they share underground. How fungus can talk to each other, and trees can share information with one another, and just how sophisticated that technology is, and the human hubris that thinks that we can do better. And
isn't one of the largest organisms or organic material like a root system of trees, a root system somewhere?
I believe it's a fungus in Oregon somewhere, right?
Ah.
Roots.
It would be an organ.
This is a great. We were asking questions from high school students. When I was in 12th grade, a little bit of my back history before soil became my life. I was in an AP bio class, and I'm in Ithaca, New York, where Cornell University is. And
nice flex, AP.
Huh?
Nice flex on the AP. All right.
It wasn't technically AP. I was in an alternative school, but it was kind of an AP. It was like 260 kids in a very small school, weird school, but it was kind of like AP. So I just wanted to associate with normal people.
Yeah.
But basically, this is what I did, and I was not really totally aware of what was happening. We were working with research students from Cornell, and they were doing the first studies that were figuring out how airborne viruses from oak groves, I think about a mile or two apart, airborne viruses were not transmitting because mycorrhizal fungi connecting the root systems of these oak groves were passing the signals of, yo, there's an airborne virus, get ready, get your antidote ready. They were literally sending internet signals underground and telling each other, you have to prepare for this airborne virus. And I was just out taking soil samples. But that was just a bit of like my background. Before I heard about this idea 8 years ago, I did have some priming that set me up to be like, oh my God, this is the biggest news ever. So
see,
I didn't really know all the nuts and bolts back then. I just was a part of that study, just taking samples. So.
But that's some like Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings stuff, man. That these plants are talking. This stuff is alive. There's an intricate network.
Avatar, the movie, James Cameron got inspired by Suzanne Simard and
Fern Gully.
Yeah, and what's the other guy? What's the guy's name? Paul Stamets. I mean, he got inspired to make, all those underground connections in Avatar.
When
He was inspired by real life, folks. It didn't look blue and purple, but it's really happening under our feet. Like, that's quite literally real. They just made it look fancy and colorful, but that's what we're dealing with the soil under our feet.
And how interconnected our own bodies are, how large a percent of us our bacteria as well, and exactly what's happening there can happen in your gut, and it's so awesome. So it's just so many layers. So okay, back to the high school questions, because these guys are really good. How can a desert be reversed into a land of more vegetation?
Okay, so water follows carbon and carbon follows water and regeneration happens. That's the simple version of it. But there's a great video. I think there's Regreening the Desert. People can YouTube. There's one in, I'm going to butcher which country it's from, so I'll just tell you guys and then you can share about it. But basically figuring out how to slow down water. When we degrade land, it doesn't function anymore, right? This is the example I give here. What's the cup designed to do? Hold liquid.
Hold
right?
water, yeah.
Hold liquid. When you break the cup, it doesn't hold liquid anymore. Our soil and its structure, as well as the plants on top of it, are designed to maximize the efficiency of water usage. So when the rain comes and hits a plant leaf, it slows down, runs down the plant, and then enters the spongy soil that we talked about, right? Mm. When rain hits bare ground, if it's newly bare, it'll break up the aggregated soil, blow it up like a bomb, and then the particles of clay will rise to the top, and they will compact even more, creating a sealed off top. Then you have runoff happening. So when water hits that, it compacts it even more and more runoff, and it brings the soil with it. Then you start losing your topsoil. And we're losing 4 tons of topsoil per acre per year. That's 4 pickup trucks full of soil in a regular backyard, acre-sized backyard. Crazy amount of soil that we're losing because of this. So that's what causes desertification, bare ground being exposed and the soil runoff. That's desertification happening. When we slow the water down with humans saying, okay, this is our desertified area. How do we make it so the water slows, sinks, and spreads through the ecosystem? That's where you can go in and build berms. You can build these swales so that the water that's coming down gets slowed down and is forced to sink into the degraded soil. In conjunction with that, if you're planting plants that have deep roots that can actually start to have enough moisture to survive, you can then create these breaker points where you actually have it naturally occurring, where the water gets slowed down. And then you start to hydrate the whole landscape, because water, instead of running off the edge, water is then starting to infiltrate in and come out later. But that's rehydrating that whole part of the land. And then something called latent seed banks, meaning seeds that are just waiting for the right conditions. It might not be a completely dead desert. You might just have seeds that are saying it's too freaking hot and too dry right now for me. So humans can help to bring those latent seed banks so that those plants are saying, now the conditions are right, it's moist enough, I can come out, and they're going to also help create more regeneration in their life process. I hope that wasn't too fast.
No, that was awesome. And so it is all possible. Deserts can be regenerated. I think that is really cool to hear.
A lot of the Middle East, I have a friend who, again, I'm forgetting which country he was in, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, Saudi Arabia. Right on the mountain ranges of Saudi Arabia. He regreened it, and you can look it up on YouTube. It's unbelievable. It feels unbelievable. Like, how in the earth did this happen? This is the desert, but we can make it livable. We can make it abundant again with grasses that come back. Once we do enough, nature takes back over and says, thank you, back on right track here.
Yeah, and the resiliency of nature is incredible, which is why, as best as conventional farming tries to kill to grow, still we're having to come out now with super herbicides, because Mother Nature has found a way around that. She is one tough cookie. We just need to help her out a little bit. And here's the question that I think is, one that Nick and I are so excited to hear your answer on. And so many of these young adults asked this is, what can I do as a teenager to help? How can we extend this plan into the lives of everyday people? What can we do?
First, go outside more. Check in with nature. It's so it's available. No matter where you are, if you dedicate to getting in touch and going to find somewhere that there's nature, even if it's a little park. I know it sounds silly in some ways, but it is serious. We spend way too much time disconnected, and reconnecting to nature, as with the name Kiss the Ground, it means becoming more intimate with our earth and what she is capable of. So that's number one. Number two, we talked about compost. Dedicate to it, start doing it, be a part of that. Number three is we have a ton of resources on our website. You don't have to take soil advocate training necessarily. I recommend you do if you're wanting to be someone who's making a difference and not take 8 years to have impact and like start immediately having impact. Definitely take that. But we also have a lot of resources where you can go and find films or find books or find things that you can start your journey. And also we have something called Find Your Path, which is the take action tool on our homepage that you can pick, what do I like to do? And we'll create a list of things that are actually catered to you to start pursuing in this movement. Other thing, for people who are up for it in the US right now, there's a lot of momentum around regenerative agriculture in politics. About a month ago, Kiss the Ground helped to get a hearing on the Hill, on the hearing on the House Ag Committee, and we helped Gabe Brown to get his presentation ready, and they watched a trailer for Kiss the Ground in the House Ag Committee. This is like completely unprecedented. So there's momentum happening inside the Senate and the House, and even in your local government, from your council members to your governors. You can go on to soilpolicyaction.us and you can find your representatives. The easiest thing, you can send them to Kiss the Ground the movie, or send them a short film you watched about the subject. You don't have to go and be a lobbyist, but you can say, hey, I think it's important that you watch this film, or that you do more around soil health, and that can begin your journey. So you can take easy political action in your area. You just fill in your information. It'll say, okay, here's your person who's in your district who can respond to this. So those are the off the top.
Soilpolicy.us.
Soilpolicyaction.us.
Action.us. I want to do that. That for me is a missing piece that I really want to start diving into more. What about one of the first things that we got really excited about is after watching the film and taking the course and wanting to make a lifestyle change, we started having food anxiety, because we were, how can we not support conventional farming? How can we support farmers that are doing the right thing, that are swimming upstream, that are struggling? And so you guys, I think, introduced to, I think it's called Regeneration International, and they put together a map that is
That's right. Yeah.
an unbelievable piece of technology. I think it's so exciting. But it's hard. It's hard to find regenerative farms that are really doing the right thing. What's kind of your feeling on all that?
It's a great question. Definitely, I can't post the link here, I don't think, right at this moment, but Regeneration International, you can look at their farm map, regenerationinternational.org, I believe. They're great friends of ours. We help them with that a bit. But it's a really great tool, but that's not necessarily accessible for everyone. I want to be fair with economics and where people are at. So if you can, by all means, do whatever you can to support farms in your region who are going into regenerative or biodynamic or what we call good version of organic. The other thing is starting with something, and for low-hanging fruit, if you can switch to organic bread, do it. Flour is sprayed with glyphosate right before harvest in most scenarios, meaning, or oats even, if you're using right now eating conventional Cheerios or eating bread that's not organic, you're dealing with a spray of glyphosate right before harvest so that it dries out and that the last seeds sprout, so you get a higher yield as a farmer. That glyphosate is very toxic to our little microbes in our gut and causing havoc on other things in our intestines. You can switch to organic bread. There's plenty of organic bread now that's not that much more expensive. If you're able to do that and make some other cut somewhere, if you're in financial hardship, please do it, because the glyphosate amounts are crazy and they're just getting worse. So I just say start with something. Because yes, if you open up Pandora's box, you'll see that our food system is terribly, dramatically bad right now, and especially processed foods. So eating whole foods, follow Dr. Mark Hyman on Instagram.
Yeah. I really appreciated the resource you all provided from the EWG about the Dirty Dozen as well.
Yeah.
And then the
Clean
Clean
15
15.
Dirty Dozen. Just
Yeah.
Google that. Clean 15 Dirty Dozen. That'll be super helpful for you.
Oh, good. Gosh. Well, thank you so much. Man, this has been so informative. I hope everyone listening, and yes, a lot of people have been asking if we'll post this afterwards. Absolutely. So that this information remains available. I know that there was a lot of good stuff shared today.
If you haven't watched the movie, watch Kiss the Ground. It's going to have a lot of the information we told you, plus so much more, and so many eye-opening moments that I think it's really a good campaigning tool.
And it's so well done.
Family.
You'll see so many familiar faces in there that are just, you know, really passionate about what's going on. It's an incredibly well done film.
I'm not, because I'm not the official maker of the film. I did help make it, but I can promote it shamelessly, I feel like, a bit more. It is so powerful. Again, a friend of ours shared it with Congresswoman Jayapal. She shared it with the chairman of the House Ag Committee. He got so inspired about it, he showed it as a trailer for the House Ag Committee itself. Like, you can say, I've tried to tell my uncle who's a farmer, but he won't listen. People are listening to the film. It's on Netflix. They can watch it. So you don't have to deal with that peer-to-peer headbutting. You can just be like, just watch this film. It's not me telling you, so you have to feel like you have to pose an argument towards it, as peers do for some, or family members do for some reason.
Right.
Film is this tool that we're having much more great reception from conventional agriculture than we thought we would. It's quite amazing, and on both sides of the aisle. So people, in whatever country you're in right now, this can be a tool, and you can be the one who introduces it to someone, that makes that huge impact. So please, by all means, share the film for sure.
Oh, that's so good. And gosh, we would love to do this with you again. We would love, as you mentioned, to go actually to a farm or ranch and see this in person and show people. I think it's just really getting to see it in person, and the examples that you give in the program are really powerful. So
where are you guys based out of?
Currently in Northern California. We're like days away from relocating to Southern California. Well, and this guy just booked a show in Australia.
I'm headed to Melbourne, so we're going to spread the word.
That's what I was referring to, because I saw that. Good job. That's amazing. And that's an opportunity, because what's happening in Australia is amazing leaders in this movement are there.
Awesome.
Guy who shared this with us, Graham State, he's in Australia, and so many others who are real movers and shakers in this.
Well, we got to do another live with some of them from there, and I can be over there with them.
Totally. Yeah, they'd love it. And they have cooler accents than me anyway, so that's
much cooler accents. Maybe we won't do it live. We don't want them to see those guys over there. Just look at us.
Oh,
thanks, guys. This was great. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And, of course, check out kisstheground.com and check out the resources. Become a member so you can help with this movement. It's so exciting. This is growing. It's finally happening. Regenerative agriculture movements here.
It seems like the snowball is really running down the hill now, which is a wonderful time to join forces. It's really exciting.
Thank you for taking the time. You know, it reminds me when I was back in college, one of the most important things that they did at the university I was at was that they would bring people who were the top of their field, and they would teach like the 101 class, like Econ 101 was taught by one of, Reagan's, led the Japan trade talks and helped draft NAFTA, like these kind of big in their areas. And the fact that you would come on and, with everything that and I think that's the basis of it, is because this is what you want to do, is reach out to people. That's what you're doing. But for you to come on and take this time, it really means a lot. And I think it really puts a stamp. We can sit here and talk about this all day, but it's really important for us to put professionals and people who put other professionals in the place to succeed and change things that are going on in the world. We can give them even a platform to people who normally wouldn't see them, then that's what we're going to try to do.
That's what it's about.
I totally appreciate that, but I just want to throw back at you this, and for everyone out there listening, this is what's so beautiful about this movement, is the generosity and the spirit. As you guys said, you were connecting with Rodale Institute, for example, and I think you're an ambassador with them now already, but there's so much to help with. and being able to bring your favorite experts into these conversations to highlight certain things or get more specific, that's great. And every inch of the way, you're growing as an advocate yourself. I didn't start as an expert in this field at all 8 years ago. I just said, I probably can help. And you guys are having the same moment as I probably can help. And anybody out there, you can help. We know that if you start helping this movement, you're going to be a big help. It's like the tech boom or .com boom before it happened. Like, get in now, help with this movement, and your work in it now will be that much more profound and will be that much more moving to the trajectory of humanity being regenerative stewards of the earth. Like, help out. It's going to make a difference. You don't have to become an expert, but you can become an expert. It's possible. And the experts who I learned from, they're just as generous in spirit as you guys or myself coming on. Like, they want to see you two be experts in your own field of this movement. We all want that. We want you to grow just as adequately in the next few years to be able to present this at a TED Talk, at a thing. Go for it. It's totally open.
Oh, that is so deeply empowering and such a so different than other careers. It's really empowering. I was really moved when you had said earlier, you know, that there's not 5 years to wait to be the expert. You just have to jump in. And so we thank you. Thank you for empowering us and giving us that extra push to move forward. We're deeply excited to do so.
Thank you so much.
For many more of these.
Ciao, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, ciao, everybody. Brazil.
Yes,
Chile,
thank you for joining.
Pakistan.
All over the world. Awesome.
All around the world.
Bye.
Bye-bye.